Welcome. Thank you. I'm Daniela Lorenz. I'm the Business Development Coordinator for the City of Brooklyn Park. And I'm really excited about this session today. We've been talking a little bit about how we provide more resources at the Business Forward Forum. And this was a year to do it because this is a year of change. I think 2020 is just the year of change. So I'm really excited to introduce our panel. I'll let them do the majority of their introductions, but I will say, so we've got Christy Morrell Stinson from the Brooklyn Mix Collective, Denise Butler from African Career Education and Resources, Inc., or ACER, as we call it, then Kwok Vo from MCCD, the Metropolitan Consortium of Community Developers, and then Tawe Anderson of DBA Taxes and Accounting. So we'll just start out, panelists, if you don't mind just doing a quick introduction about yourself and your organization and what you do and how you help businesses. How about we start with Christy?
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. And Daniela, thank you again for having me here. I'm with a company called Significant Advantage. We work with entrepreneurs from idea to angel. What we mean by that is we take you by the hand and help you through that grand odyssey from your first idea to your entrepreneurial venture, your small business, all the way to the point where you can be an angel for someone else and invest in others. I founded something in the Brooklyns called the Brooklyn Mix. We have some great people participating in that. It's multicultural innovation exchange, and we have an investment cooperative that we have launched that will be able to do micro investments in entrepreneurs in the Brooklyns.
Thanks, Christy. Next, we'll have Tawe. Would you mind just giving a brief introduction of yourself and what you do?
Sure. My name is Tawe Anderson. I'm an accountant, but I'm also an attorney. I became an accountant. I started out doing accounting before I became an attorney, primarily doing taxes and some bookkeeping. And so now I do taxes, I do accounting, I practice tax law, and I do a lot of business litigation. So my goal is from start to end, whatever their business needs are.
Thanks, Tawe. And then we'll have Denise. Do you mind giving a brief introduction?
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me. I'm glad and excited to be on here this morning. My name is Denise Butler, and I am currently the Director of Economic Development at ACER, which is African Career Education and Resource, Inc. And my work at ACER is leading our economic development work and programs around business development, just really supporting entrepreneurs and existing business owners to growing their business. And honestly, our overall arching goal is just creating community wealth building in communities of color in the BIPOC communities. Thank you.
Thanks, Denise. And then finally, Kwok, would you mind giving a brief introduction about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. And sorry about the camera. It's we're working on getting me a new laptop because the camera is having some issues right now. But my name is Kwok. I'm with MCCD. I'm a business advisor there. I work with Hennepin County, and what we do as a company is we help a lot of newer businesses or current businesses that we kind of help with grants and loans. With a lot of the times right now, we know there are some businesses that are struggling, so we provide grants. We help you guys find loans, as well as just get bankable if businesses aren't bankable. So we help a lot with the financials and business planning, essentially. If you are looking to expand your business and you want to figure out a way to go about that, that's something that we can kind of put our hand in and help out. We also work directly with the city economic developers to try to make that happen.
Excellent. Thanks, panelists. So we'll just jump right in. We've got kind of a mix of people here today. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is, I'm somebody who has wanted to start a business for a while, but I'm really not sure where to start. Are there any advice for first steps or things that I should really get in line before I start on this venture? Why don't we start with Christy?
Well, considering a startup is a really big step. So the first thing I'm going to recommend is to do your research, to do your homework, to really understand the market that you want to go into. And sometimes people don't know enough to do that research. So you have to start with where you're at and say, okay, what do I know? and then find people who are experts in that next step, right? So if you're trying to figure out which idea to run with, then you're going to want to take a look at who can advise me in which ideas are viable right now. Once you've landed on that startup idea and you really have an idea what you want to do, then the question is, am I going to start from scratch, or am I going to purchase an existing business? And you're going to want to meet with your tax advisor, and you're going to want to meet with your financial planner probably straight away. And you're going to want the two of them together, working together. And then from there, it's really a matter of doing that market research and putting a strong business plan together that has contingency planning. And I use the business model canvas, and I highly recommend that approach to startup planning.
Great. Any of our other panelists have anything to add about, where to start, first steps?
My advice for your first step is really sit down with yourself and figure out what is it that you're passionate about, what is it that you love to do, and how can you present that in either a product or a service, looking into the market and then finding a need, and how are you going to be able to fill that gap or fill that need that consumers are looking for right now. I really feel like in order to be very successful in business, and whatever business that you do, whatever you do, period, it should be something that you are passionate about, something that you know how to do well. And then the successful thing about that is being able to package that in a way that you can be able to sell it and still meet the needs of the market. So really sit down and have that conversation with self. And when you think about going into business, we have to go outside of the normal way that we are accustomed to and historically have been doing it, and looking at where we are right now, dealing with the current environment and situation. I would really push people to look more into who are the folks around me that I can go into business with. Who can I start on this journey together with? Who can I look at partnering with? And who are the folks around me that I can look and trust to come and invest in me and what it is that I'm trying to do? And just thinking in that mindset will really put you a step ahead of the game as someone who's an entrepreneur looking to start a business.
Tawe or Kwok, anything to add?
Yeah, so I would add that drafting a business plan is almost fundamental to success of any business. And the reason is that if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there, right? So the business plan helps to guide you on not only what is your overall goal for your business, but some kind of a step-by-step process of what you're getting yourself into. Business plans are also essential for startups if you're trying to find funding for your business as well. If I'm an investor and I'm looking to put my money into a business, I want to put my money somewhere where I can feel confident that I'm going to either get my return, or at the very least, this person knows what they're doing, and my money is somewhat safe. It's always going to be somewhat risky, but at least I can kind of depend on this person. And as Denise said, a lot of investors will also look at how passionate you are about it. Sometimes they'll go straight off of that, because your passion can help you it's going to help you get through the hard times, but every business has ups and downs, and you have to be prepared for that. Business plans can help with that.
Awesome. All right. So this is also going to be geared more towards early entrepreneurs, and we'll stick with you, Tawe, because I think you'll probably have the most to say. But there are several different business types: S Corps, C Corps, LLCs, sole proprietors, with different tax implications or different meanings. How do I go about determining what is best for me, for my business goals? And is there even an opportunity down the line to change, the type of corporation I have if I decide maybe it's not right for me?
Absolutely. So as far as, there's so many factors that go into determining what type of business organization should I have. The primary thing that you want to be thinking about is the reason that you're organizing your business is because you are trying to limit your liability in case something goes wrong, or in case someone tries to sue you. So what does that actually mean? Say you are starting say you own two grocery stores that each make $1 million, and you open up a third one that makes negative $10,000 a year. Well, someone slips and falls in your third one and they sue you. So if they sue you in that position and you just own all three grocery stores with no LLC, no S Corp, no corporation, then they can come after all the money that you have. So they can come after the $2 million that you make from your other businesses and the nothing that you make in the third business. But if you have a separate LLC for each business, then if they sue you in the negative $10,000 business, negative $10,000 business, they can only get the negative $10,000 that you have in that business, which is nothing. It's the very reason that you want to incorporate in some type of way. Now, among the different ways of incorporating, primarily most people, an LLC is going to be fine, unless you're doing something other than just a normal business, or you are so the primary thing is anybody can own an LLC. So that's why it works well for everyone. If for an S Corp is great for very small businesses or where there's a limited amount of owners. But if you are a foreigner, you cannot own an S Corp generally. And so so an LLC would work for if you are a foreigner. That's a benefit of having an LLC. For corporations, primarily you would want a corporation if you plan for your business to go public. So that's the reason that you would consider doing a corporation. And so those are primarily what you would do. And can you switch later? Absolutely, you can switch later. Among all the different types of business organizations, you can switch at any time. And what should you switch kind of depends on your situation. I didn't mention a partnership. You could have a limited liability partnership. The primary reason you would just want to stay as a partnership is if you are bringing assets into the business. So there are benefits and drawbacks of each type. And that's why generally, if you go and see any tax planner or accountant, they will say, hey, just start an LLC or start an S Corp, because for the most part, that's going to work well for people.
So what I'm hearing in all of that is, as you're starting to start a business or expand, find a really good accountant or a tax lawyer to help you out for sure. Because they're going to give you all that really, really good information. Is there anything else from any of the panelists, any insights on or questions or anything specific to that right away?
I'm just going to add and encourage people, please, 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 please register your business. Registering your business does not hold you to any financial responsibilities. It does not hold you to filing taxes. But what registering your business will do will begin to build that business history. And then other folks will be able to utilize that as well to be able to see the history of your business. Even if you're a sole proprietor, please register your business. I find that too many of our business owners have been in business probably 2, 3, 5 years and have not registered their business. They felt that maybe because they were a sole proprietor or maybe they didn't make that much money, so they shouldn't bother to register your business. Register your business with your state secretary office. It's good for your business in the long run. It helps you to have that business history, even that to get that credence or to validate that your business does exist and you have been in business for this amount of time. So please take the time to register your business.
Yeah, I will echo that. It can have a lot of funding implications too. Sorry, Christy. So great.
Oh, that's fine. Just to tag on to what Denise is saying, is absolutely critical to do that. And then secondly, to register with Dun and Bradstreet. This is free. You don't have to sign up for any of their paid services. You can go straight to their chat, ask for a DUNS number, and get your DUNS number for your business. A lot of people don't know to do this. You get that DUNS number and you begin to build trade references, which is going to build your business credit tied to your tax ID number for your business. So as Denise said, your state is your first stop, your Secretary of State. DUNS is your second. Actually, DUNS would be your third, because in between there, you need that tax ID number. And I know Tawe can help you with that. And that's a pretty easy second step to take, to get that tax ID number from the IRS. And now you can go to DUNS and apply for free to get that DUNS number. And now you're set up with all three entities, and you're going to be able to start building business credit.
Excellent. Let's keep on that topic of business credit. Credit is really critical in our current financial system to access favorable financing or financing at all. And we know this can be a barrier for some people who don't have credit or they don't have the best credit. What are some ways that businesses and entrepreneurs can build or improve their business credit? Kwok, do you have any insights on that or some thoughts to get the conversation started about business credit, building it or improving it? Can you hear me? Oh, we might have gone away. It's all right. Does anybody, any of our panelists have any insights about that? Business credit, how we can build it?
I would encourage people, first of all, to separate their business from their personal account. I find too many entrepreneurs continue to just function their business out of their personal account. And in order to start developing that business credit is you have to open that business account. I mean, the bank you bank with are the first folks who are going to be able to see, how viable you are, how creditworthy you are. And so when you can right off the bat start establishing that distinction between your personal banking and your business banking, that will better help you to put you in the position as far as to start looking at the credit of your business versus looking at your credit. I know some people struggle with the lack thereof credit. And so again, your business where you bank, the place where you bank at, establishing a business account, creating a business credit account are some of the key steps in starting to get that business creditworthiness for your business.
Any other thoughts about business credit, building it?
So for building business credit, a lot of times there are avenues for getting loans that are not a traditional bank. There are organizations or peer-to-peer financing options that are available. So if you don't have business credit or you don't have good personal credit, there are ways that you can still get loans. There are other avenues such as what I mentioned. After you have been in business for a while, there are lenders who will primarily look at your business income to determine whether they will offer you a loan or not. So even if you don't have any credit at all, further down, loans may become available to you. On something that Denise talked about with having a separate bank account, that's fundamental for being qualified for traditional financing, is having that separate bank account. And also on the issue of, she encouraged people to incorporate. So the purpose, like I mentioned before, the purpose of incorporating is so that you can, is to limit your liability in case you're sued. Now, if you have a business, you have an LLC, but then you use your personal bank account, if someone sues you, even if you have an LLC and you don't have a separate business account, they can still come after all of your money, because they're going to be using your personal account to determine how much the business makes. And so it's a terrible idea to have one business account, to have zero businesses account. You should, for every business, you should have a separate business account for that business.
And for folks listening today, just so you know, those are the things that Acer can also support you with, is connect you with the resources to help you with business credit, and connect you with, small funding, micro funding that can start to steer you in that direction of business lending and being credit worthy as well, as far as getting access to more traditional lending opportunities. But yeah, start with smaller banks. Try your CDFI, those are your community development financing institutions. They are more favorable to entrepreneurs and more favorable to smaller businesses as well.
That was going to be my next question. You were ahead of me, Denise, in terms of building credit. Certainly there are lots of different organizations that aren't private financiers that are a little bit more favorable and can really help you start to build that credit and start to repair your credit. And there's also resources. Christy, I wonder if you could speak a little bit about this. I know you've worked with some in the past that can help people repair their credit if they've got bad credit.
I found that, first of all, Sunrise Banks in our community is a CDFI, and if you go to their website, they have a credit repair partner. I think it's called SELF, SELF. But go there and just double check me. But you can sign up for SELF for free. Or you can find alternatives to them, but that's a really great resource for building credit, repairing credit, understanding. There's a myriad of credit scores out there. Everybody scores you differently depending on if you're trying to get an auto loan, or you're trying to lease a property, you're trying to purchase real estate privately for your residence versus purchasing commercial real estate. There's many different types of credit, and there's over 40 credit reporting agencies. We tend to think of the top three, the Equifax, the TransUnion, and the Experian, but there's, many of these sub-agents or smaller agencies that report up to them. And that, again, that's tied to your personal credit, which is tied to your social security number. So in the meantime, you want to be building that business credit by building trade references on Dun & Bradstreet. I know that Renatus Education through Anna and Roy Barriga in our community is another resource to look to for building business credit if you really want to dig into that. I can provide that resource after the forum if anyone's interested.
Excellent. Christy, if you wouldn't mind sending it to me, and I can make sure it gets sent out to everybody.
If I could just make one more point on that, Daniela, that's a really important one, and it's an easy step for businesses, is open a small line of credit with a, like an Office Depot or Quill Stationery, or, think through like what kind of supplies are you going to need, office supplies, materials, equipment, and go to those companies and look to see where can you start with a small line of credit. And that can help build your business credit. Make sure that's tied to your EIN, your tax ID number, your federal tax ID number, also known as your EIN or employer ID number. And make sure that they build that trade reference for you on Dun & Bradstreet, and that they report your good payments, because that's going to build that history for you.
Excellent. So it looks like, let's make sure he's back. Kwok is back. Kwok, we're talking a little bit about business credit and building business credit. Is there anything else you can add? So we've heard, get your Dun & Bradstreet number, your trade references, get a separate banking account or business banking account. Anything else about, repairing credit or building business credit that you'd like to add?
Well, that seems like they got all the major things down. I think a big one is, opening up a separate bank account to make sure that those expenses are separate from your personal expenses. And then just establishing a good rapport with vendors and suppliers so that they are reporting any positive experiences that you are having. And that's a really big one, because not all businesses are reporting their data. So I think that's a good thing to, when you are making these relationships with your vendors and suppliers, to make sure that you figure that out, whether they are going to be reporting that data or not.
Excellent. So now that we've got our business type, we have our business plan, we've got good credit, we're ready to go out and get a loan to either start my business or expand my business. How do I go about understanding what type of loan is right for me, what size of loan is right for me, and a good financer to work with? Kwok, do you have anything while you're here to just add to that, or insights?
At the moment, I don't have any insight on that. I'm still trying to figure out my way and navigate that end of everything for myself right now. So I would defer that to somebody else.
Christy, Denise, or Tawe?
I would have a few comments on this, but I want to defer to Denise, because I know that she works directly with CDFIs as well. And so it'd be great to hear what your experience has been on that side of things.
As far as what size or type of loan is right for me?
For advising businesses on who to work with on finance.
Oh, wow. I guess it really depends on the size of business that you are. So for our organization, we tend to recognize that there's a gap when it comes to micro businesses. And so we really worked on defining what a micro business is. I know we have the SBA definition of a small business, and we realize that there's a lot of our businesses that don't even fall into that definition. And so the businesses, the size that we normally tend to work with people who fall into that $250,000 mark, net profit, annual net profit or less. Folks who probably have from 0 to 5 employees. And even more so, we tend to find the businesses that we work with are those who are just the owner is the employee, owner is the only employee. And so what we tend to say is, let's start with our CDFIs. Let's start with the Sunrise Banks. Right now, we're currently working with a group of women investors who's come together to open a cooperative. And they went to, a more traditional bank and realized that that bank does not work with those types of businesses. And so they found themselves having to go to an even smaller, newer bank that has just opened to be able to service their accounts as a cooperative investment group. And so it really depends on your size. And I would say if you consider yourself, based on the definition that I've kind of provided you, a micro business, you should start with your local CDFIs, and you should start with local community organizations such as ACER and your very small bank, like the city that you're in. And if it's a bank that's really just in your city, those banks are more favorable. They don't have, they're not going to be competing on the level of like a Wells Fargo. And so they're going to be more open to helping new businesses, entrepreneurs, and smaller businesses. So like, as people experience, even during the pandemic, when we're looking for resources or relief dollars, that it was easier for them to go to their city local credit union or city banks versus going to the bigger banks like the Wells Fargos or the Bank of Americas. Those banks were, they had so much traffic. They were so big, they couldn't handle, the smaller businesses or the entrepreneurs when it came to business relief. It came more from those smaller banks, those more city local banks for your cities.
Denise, I would ask you, have you found that there are specific banks that will make the micro business owner a priority? One of the things that I always tell business owners is work with the financial institution that's going to make you a priority. Interview the bank manager or the credit union manager, the CDFI leader, and make sure that they're really going to make you a priority.
That's true. Like Old National Bank has been working. Old National Bank is where this cooperative was able to open their account in. I think it's Minnesota Central Bank is where I sent a lot of my micro business owners to apply for that PPP. And were able to get help in 24 hours. Somebody was able to respond to their application. There's a new bank here in the city of Brooklyn Park. I believe is Mills Bank. Maybe Daniela can help me. I was able to send folks there. So it's like these really smaller bank. We have the US, it's a credit union here as well in Brooklyn Park. Folks, I were able to send people there and they were able to get help, versus even though they were more traditionally banking with the bigger banks, but they were still were able to get the type of service and help and relief that they needed at the smaller banks.
Yeah, definitely. And it looks like Mackenzie from Core Trust Bank is also saying, and they're a bank in the community as well. So certainly, I think from my experience too, I've seen, those smaller, more local banks, even if they're not specific to the community, do tend to be more flexible and even might have a mission that they want to serve smaller community-based businesses as well, which is really important. Especially if you've never gone out and gotten a loan before, it can be really daunting. So to have somebody who you can actually see and talk to consistently is really helpful. I've heard.
Don't be afraid to interview different options. You're shopping, okay?
Exactly.
Getting a loan is, you're a consumer and they want to work with you. You want to, a lot of business owners will be tend to be a little timid or tend to be a little, oh, I thank you for doing this favor for me. This is a business transaction, and you want to make sure that you're going to be served in the way that's going to work for you. So don't be afraid to look around. And if you feel like you're not being made a priority, don't be afraid to shop around. I recently had a situation with a business owner, and they're approaching a closing on a commercial property, and they needed to switch lenders. And it was a little nerve-wracking for them at first, but I said, you know what, trust the process. And that second lender stepped in, and the difference was night and day to them, and they were able to get to closing successfully and as quickly as possible. They were doing an SBA loan, and those do take some time.
Definitely. All right, any other thoughts about loan types or sizes?
I absolutely agree that it's key who you are working with for your banking needs in general. You absolutely should look at it in some terms of a partnership when you're working with these different entities, because different entities such as credit unions are less likely to charge you the minor fees. And for a small business, that's huge. Are they charging you for your bank account each month? Are they charging you for cashier's checks? Are they charging you for money orders? And this is really important for paying bills in general. And I've had a lot more success as far as reduced fees, eliminating fees, or no fees at all dealing with credit unions. And so I highly recommend credit unions. Credit unions do not offer everything. So it does depend on exactly what you're looking for, or what program you're trying to get into. So you have to know what you're getting into. But generally, I've felt as though they cared more for my business at a credit union, or probably the same at a smaller bank, than going with the big chain banks like that we're all aware of.
Excellent. So my next question is about businesses that are primarily working in cash, whether it's actually physically getting paid cash. We know Cash App, Venmo, PayPal are really popular and really slick tools to be able to use and make transactions. But sometimes it's hard to get all of your information in Cash App, PayPal, Venmo into a nice accounting type of a document. Is there any advice that you have for a business that's doing primarily or using those app-based or cash-based transactions to get organized so they understand their expenses and profits, which can help them when they're going out to get loans or grants or financial information or resources rather?
So there's some really great online bookkeeping tools, Daniela. There's even some free tools out there. I use Wave Accounting, and you can connect these apps so that the information is feeding right in. You want to track, that's absolutely critical, as I think Denise used the word fundamental earlier, or Tawe did. You've got to get these fundamentals in place, and tracking your cash, tracking all of your transactions, everything going in, everything going out. Get an online bookkeeping tool. I mean, at the very least, a spreadsheet, but that's manual. It can be subject to error, and you might fall behind and then feel overwhelmed. Get technical assistance if you've fallen behind on your bookkeeping. As Denise mentioned, ACERS in the community. You've got Patio, you've got LIBA, the Liberian Business Association. I think the African Development Center has some options as well. Get some technical assistance if you've fallen behind. Don't be afraid to reach out for help, but you've got to have that ready, because when it comes to applying, you got to have your documentation in a row. And even those cash apps, you can feed that information into your bookkeeping system. If people are handing you dollar bills, then you're going to want to photograph that or have some kind of way of tracking your cash.
Any other thoughts on that from our panel?
So yeah, I'm just gonna, kind of piggyback on what Christy has shared here, and just to say that if you don't know the money, if you don't know your numbers, you don't know what your business is doing. And I find that that's a lot of things that we come across with the businesses that we work with, is they have no kind of bookkeeping system. They have no way of tracking exactly what is going in and what is coming out of their business. And then I'm saying, well, how do you know that you are profitable? How do you know that you're making money? Are you really a business? Are you really a business owner? Or have you just traded your 9 to 5 in for another way to bring in income? And so it's very, very important for you to be able to track the numbers, know what your business is really doing when it comes to the numbers. That is the number one thing. If you want to be in business, is you have to understand what your business is doing, and that is through the numbers. And again, this is why it's so important for you to have that separate banking system, because a lot of these Cash App, Venmo, they are reporting these numbers now. Square, they're all reporting the numbers that you're making. And I know that making money and taxes, those things go hand in hand. And so again, it's great from the start to start and sit down with somebody, like Daniela said, like a tax preparer, and really start understanding all those particulars as far as your account, because the bank does report, no matter if it's your personal account or a business account, the bank too does report, how much money has been coming into that account. And so it's really, really important to connect all of these things to a separate account that is not your personal account, so you can really understand the numbers.
Excellent. Any more thoughts on that? Staying organized? I think we might have really captured it. Just make sure that you are working early and often with a tax preparer or technical assistance provider. There's so many options out there. Very local, Acer, Leva, like Christy mentioned, a little bit more regional, like MCCD. And this is their entire job, and they want to help you. So certainly reach out, no matter where you are. If you've been in business for 10 minutes or 10 years, we're happy to help you with that. So the last question I have before we open it up to some Q&A from our group is just, if you could give somebody one piece of advice as they are starting or expanding their business, or something to, really think about, something you see that gets missed a lot, what would it be? And I'll have, everybody from our panel respond. Even if it's something we've said before, I think just to reiterate, anything that's really important for people to hear or know and to think about as they're starting or expanding a business.
Daniela, I'd love to answer that and say, surround yourself with forward-thinking people, from your accountant to your business coach to your financial planner. Those are 3 critical advisors you've got to have in your court. There's ways to be efficient with how you spend your money on those services, but make sure you have those advisors in your court. And then my second answer, or point number 2, would be get the book, The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber, and think about the points he makes on the difference between the technician who loves what you do, you're really good at what you do, and you built a business around what you do. But there's another level of thinking to manage that business. And then there's a whole nother level of thinking to own that business and drive it forward as a venture. And those are 3 different levels that you really need to develop if you want to be a successful business owner and move beyond being that single owner operator. I'm really good at what I do, but there is more opportunity for you than that. And you can think about transferable value. What happens at the end of the day when you're ready to retire or you're ready to move on to a different business? How is that business going to have transferable value for you so you can hand it off to someone else and take your chips off the table?
Kwok, Denise, Tawe, any other advice? Lessons learned?
I'm going to start.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Tawe. Go ahead.
So I think part of what Christy is saying is definitely when we look at what these books that teach wealth management or teach us, one of the things that are big is making sure that you don't just own a job, but that you own a business. And the biggest thing to owning any business and being profitable is the successes that go into the business. In other words, can your business run without you? And that's the fundamental difference between the small businesses and the large businesses. Is the smaller businesses tend not to have established principles, established processes involved. And it goes down to the basics. Who's answering the phones? What are they saying when they answer the phones? If you own a grocery store, when do you restock things? What time do you close? Who's running the POS system? How does the POS system work? All of these things need to be written down and training provided. And so, because at some point, you need to be able to step away and have the business run itself. And if that can't happen, your business it's going to be tough for your business to grow. And a lot of that comes down to the business planning and making sure that you have the time to do that. One of the things that I definitely regretted was when I had a lot more time on my hands, and I didn't use that time to develop those systems and processes. And that's one thing that you can do when you're starting, when you're in a point where you can your needs, but there's going to be slow times or down times like with ants. And so that's something that you would definitely want to think about.
And so I'm just gonna start back right where I started, with my very first response of starting a business. It's passion. Again, what do you like to do? What are you good at doing? And once you understand that, and you can apply that into the market, you're on the right track. But understand that just because you're good at cooking does not mean you can run a restaurant. And so it kind of loops back to what Christy was saying, understanding that you can cook, yes, but are you the one that's supposed to be managing the restaurant? So I feel like if you take what Tawe just said, is understanding what are the different processes, what are the structures that you need to put in place right away, then therefore you'll be working towards owning a business instead of you just being the business.
Yeah,
anything to add?
Yep, and then just to add to that, I think it's really important when you're starting a business to have that plan, and kind of the structure of that plan is just knowing from point A to point B to point C that you have the funds that you need to get to point B, and knowing what you need to get to point C. Having the plan is great, but you need to know what financial commitments you need to get to each of those points. And when you're ready to take in money and you're ready to start getting a profit, to really seek out those point of sale systems and understand how are you going to be bringing that money in. And I think those are one of the things that are really overlooked, is just that in itself is already complicated with, the rates that you're going to be paying when you're accepting cards. How are you going to be, what cards will you be accepting? And nowadays with things getting more complex with POS systems, I think the training on that, like Tawe kind of spoke, you need to be able to have people that can run this business without you. And trust me when I say that those POS systems are getting more and more complicated. I mean, you have POS systems that you can have an app that can literally do laundry for you now. So there's tons of things that I think, you really need to figure out the business needs and make sure that training is done. And I can't emphasize that enough. In my previous roles, I've helped so many businesses where if the owner was out, no one knew how to run these POS systems or, send those reportings at the end of the day. And just the small things like that happen on a daily basis that can really impact a business.
Excellent. So we've got a few minutes for questions. And I think, Gordy, did you want to add anything or ask a question?
Oh, yes. I just wanted to say, there's a lot of great ideas out there and to start and run your business. And I think getting the separate checking account is definitely a big one. And Tuan mentioned, I was going to jump in and say this, your receptionist. Your receptionist is your first person that is in contact. And many times it's the last person that they see. I've been an administrative assistant for, well, let's just say a while. And when they walk in the door, they see you. When they walk out the door, they see you. When I was a office manager, it would have been great to have a receptionist or administrative assistant to help me out. And that's what I've done for the last, 15 years, just to, help the business that way. And when Tuan mentioned that, I thought that was great. Thank you.
Yeah, it kind of goes back to what Denise was saying at the top too, is find good people to partner with you and and to really help you with your vision carrying through. So that's a really great addition. Thanks, Gordy. I did see a little bit earlier, somebody asked a good question about who at the city can help you with all of this stuff. It would be me at the city. That is my whole job. Either I can provide you with direct resources that the city might have, or connect you to the wonderful people like the ones that we've had sit on our panel today, or other resources throughout the region. We know that that's really daunting. That's the entire point of my position, is either help you through a city process or to say, oh, it sounds like you need to talk to Denise at Acer, or you need to go talk to Tawe over at TVA Accounting to get everything in order for you. Because what I always say to people is I might not always know the answer, but I probably know somebody that does. So please, please, please think of me again as another resource as you're thinking about starting, expanding, you know, finding partners, etc., finding space, all of the above. Were there any other questions from anybody today? You can feel free to take yourself off mute or put it right into the chat. I've been kind of looking in there.
And don't forget to tune into the chat, guys. There's been some really great comments and things from several of us. I tend to utilize the chat a lot.
I am wondering if there's not any questions, you know, especially now that we've seen the importance of like e-commerce and online businesses and building that. If any of our panelists have insights, advice, things that they've worked with or done before to get a really nice web page, you know, it doesn't have to be the most extravagant thing, but to just really help to brand yourself. Is there anything you've done, worked with before, et cetera, that you've seen has helped businesses in that space?
I find that a lot of the businesses that I work with do not have websites. Again, folks, especially with the current times that we're in, I'm sure people realize more than ever now the importance of marketing. And that's what separates the small business from the big businesses. Marketing is a budget item for the big businesses. It's some of their largest expenses is marketing. And that's something that small businesses have to value and start to put some funding into. You have to have a website. We are living in the technology age. You have to have a website. You have to be having a social media presence if you really want to take your business to the next level. And so that is very, very, very important. And I noticed that there's a thing called a one-pager now for websites. So it doesn't have to be, you know, these extravagant websites, you know, go according to what you can afford, but don't just excuse yourself out of the process just because you don't think you can afford it. And so those one pages can be about 300, 500, and be open to, don't ask for free stuff. Pay for things. You just have to budget it, because if you're getting it free, it's probably not what you need. And so just budget if it's going to be $300 or $500 for a website, a one pager. Just have that presence, have that digital presence.
Definitely. And there's a lot of platforms out there that make it a lot easier to access even really nice but simple sites, which is really what everybody needs. You know, as somebody who does shop online, I don't need, you know, everything to be the most glitzy thing. As long as I can see where I'm going, it is really helpful.
You want to make it easy for people to do business with you. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Does anybody have anyone that they can recommend that can help you put a website together? I have a website, but I'm trying to get my website online so that people can shop from my store online.
I recommend
I have a platform. I have a platform to do that. I just need some help being able to put that together.
Yeah, and it looks like, Christy, if you want to talk a little bit about Beth and the work that she does. You know,
well, she's here in Brooklyn Park, which is why I mentioned her. I mean, there's a lot of marketing companies out there. You want to be careful who you work with. You want a company that's worked with a business the size and type that you're going to be doing, even when it comes to website development. I mean, there's a lot of smoke and mirrors out there. So you really want a trustworthy resource. I love working with Beth here in Brooklyn Park because she's worked with tons of micro business and she understands the needs of mom and pop as well as the larger businesses. And what that means is she's going to right size. right? She's going to give you the right size tools. And as Denise said, you don't need a big, crazy, sophisticated website. Sometimes you just need something simple that makes it easy for people to do business with you. Maybe it's an online booking tool. Maybe it's an online shopping cart. But you know, what's the way to make it easy for people to do business with you? You want to make sure you ask any web developer, how are they going to facilitate that customer journey for you? And they should have to give you a diagram of how that's going to work.
I must say that I personally stay away from contracts. Just stay away from contracts, especially when it comes to marketing or when it comes to SEO stuff where they're going to be driving traffic to your website. The best resources I've used for marketing or for growing my business have come without a contract. They have to earn my business each and every month. You know, otherwise I'm going to stop using them. And there's no reason to make the commitment to 1 to 2 years for any marketing platform, because if it's not working for you, you should be able to get out of it without owing them another year's worth of your revenue. It just has never worked out for me. And it will be more expensive monthly to do a month-to-month marketing scheme or whatever you're doing. But each and every month, there's no slacking for them. It's well worth it. You get what you pay for, essentially.
So it looks like we are about out of time today. I just want to really thank our panelists. Thanks everybody for being in here. And if the panelists wouldn't mind giving me their contact information, I should have it from everybody. We can email that out with our vendor packets. Again, utilize your resources. Ask me, ask Christy, Denise, Kwok, Tawe, anybody. We are invested in you doing well. We want to make sure that you do well and feel confident going forward. So again, thanks so much. The breakout room is going to close automatically and we'll get kicked back into the larger session. Thanks, guys.